Since the mass gathering on the 9th of this month at Galle Face Green, the persistence of the protesters has exceeded the expectations of many. What was initially thought to be a traditional Sri Lankan protest that lasts for a couple of hours at most, has turned out to be a beacon for thousands of young and old for the past 5 days straight. And throughout the past 5 days, they have stayed where they were, namely outside the presidential secretariat and on Galle Face Green that now resembles a campsite. The camp's residents have also given it a name, one that clearly displays what their main demand is. Despite the heavy rains, protesters continue to voice their slogans, hold up their placards, and also help distribute food and water to their fellow protesters. The campsite also has its own medical tent. These efforts have been supported by streams of donors, dropping off whatever is needed to sustain the struggle. To add to this, just as it was in the day before, artists and musicians continue to entertain the protesters at the location today. Some protesters created their own seasonal entertainment with the holding of traditional Aurudu games as well. Meanwhile, protesters also lined up to place their signatures on a giant banner that has been set up to collect signatures on a petition calling for the resignation of the president. With what was witnessed today, we could safely say that for all intents and purposes, the protesters seem to be prepared to stretch their struggle into a 6th day as well. In the meantime, after 5 days of continuous protests, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa announced today that the government is willing to hold discussions with the protesters and listen to their complaints. Taking to Twitter, the Premier stated that understanding that this is a tough time for all Sri Lankans, he invites the youth to meet and discuss any possible, plausible courses of action for the sake of Sri Lanka. In response, however, the protesters have point-blank declined the Premier's invitation, stating that they only have one demand, that is for the President and the government to resign. Meanwhile, other anti-government protests were also held in other parts of the country as well. As it has been the case in the past 5 days or more protests were held by Sri Lankans residing overseas.
Go home! Go home! Kaputu kak kak kak.